movies, a genre of film that, until high school, I genuinely had no experience with, at least that I could remember. Now, you can mainly blame that on me being a massive wimp as a kid, and my parents not caring much for the genre. So, I didn't have a proper horror movie experience until June 2022, where I watched American Psycho on a plane coming home from Europe. But things didn't really start until July, when the friend I watched Cat in the Hat with twice invited me over to watch some horror movies he really liked. However, these were the horror movies you might be thinking of, as this guy has a very special affection for really awful low-budget slashers. Or just funny horror movies in general, which, I mean, could you blame him? So one of the movies he showed me was 1995's Ice Cream Man, starring Clint Howard, which he straight up had a hyperfixation with at the time. Like, every time we went on a Discord call, he'd constantly say,
"It's Grenadine! From my ice cream treats!"
So if one of your closest friends memeing a movie this much, you know you gotta watch it. And I did, with him and his brother, and it went so much deeper than just Grenadine for ice cream treats, as this is one of the most insane slasher movies I've ever watched, and you could tell this movie is going to be batshit insane just by the way it starts. So enough personal bullshit, let's get into the American Psycho for real, Sigma males. We've just been watching shitty movies, pretty much the entire afternoon.
How do you guys think this movie starts?
Ice cream.
I don't want to know.
But we watched Killer Sofa, Feeders, and now Ice Cream Man. So some real cinematic masterpieces here.
It starts with a drive-by.
Like, our movie starts in 1960s suburban California, where an ice cream man gets gunned down by the mob. Yeah, and this kid who watched it all happen was completely traumatized by this, as now there's no one to bring ice cream. I'm serious, that's what he says.
Who's gonna bring me ice cream, Mommy?
Yeah, that's how I would react after watching a man die a horrific bloody death. And this right here is our protagonist, Gregory Tudor, who I guess is driven insane to a point where he's taken to a mental asylum, and it's implied that he gets regular lobotomies through these flashback scenes. So, yeah. So now it's the modern day, and Greg is the new ice cream man. But you see, there's a twist, as he puts all sorts of wacky stuff in his ice cream treats, like cockroaches and flesh. You know, something that the citizens of this town should catch on to immediately. But they don't. Like, there's even a part where a cop eats an ice cream with a fucking human eye in it, and there's like a 10-second clip of him chewing it up like a marshmallow. And he doesn't notice anything. So that right there shows how smart all the characters are, which we should probably get into them.
Who's the Pied Piper now, ice cream dick?
So this movie's protagonists are a group of kids, which feels a little weird. Like, yeah, this movie doesn't take itself seriously at all, but having kids being the protagonists of an R-rated slasher flick just doesn't really feel right. It also doesn't help that these kids don't really have much personality beyond ice cream guy is evil. There is an exception though, Small Paul, as he's kidnapped by Greg early in the movie and spends most of his time with him bonding over their love of ice cream. So that might make you assume that Paul's now on Greg's side and will defend him, right? No, he's actually the one who kills him and calls him ice cream dick. So I guess he was a double agent. That was until the very end, where he's shown in therapy and is acting similar to Greg. So was this meant to be sequel bait? There was a Kickstarter 10 years ago for a sequel that was backed by Clint Howard himself, so maybe, but that didn't go anywhere. There's also the fact that horror franchises get milked to death, so if this movie did better, then it probably would have been turned into a giant franchise. There is a funny chase between Greg and a kid in a supermarket though, and the kids shoot a rocket at an undercover cop, so that's really cool.
Serve and protect my ass.
So there's another group of people trying to uncover the ice cream man mystery, and it's these cops. Now they're not all that important to the movie, but there are two scenes with them that are absolutely beautiful. First is when they're having to search Greg's ice cream parlor because Small Paul is missing, and they absolutely destroy the place, with Greg being so distraught they had to dub in lines. And when they're finished, Greg's landlord sees all this and is so pissed off she rebukes the police by saying, "Serve and protect my ass," which is absolutely based. I haven't even gotten to the asylum scene. So in their quest to get more info on Greg, the cops visit the mental asylum that he stayed at. And this is the part where it almost becomes a zombie movie, as they're being chased by zombie-like patients. Why are they being chased, and what's the point of all this? I have no idea, as this scene adds absolutely nothing to the story, but it's pretty funny. So with this being a slasher movie, and a more comedic one at that, you'd expect us to have a lot of funny on-screen deaths, right? Well, yes, but actually no. A lot of the deaths are just Gregory stabbing someone. Also, a good chunk of the deaths are also entirely off-screen, which is a little lame. But I think it's all made up for by probably the greatest death in any horror movie, the waffle maker death. So one of the kids' dads is an absolute cuck, and is cheating on his wife with this incredibly unlikable woman. And with Greg knowing the kids are spying on him, he blackmails them by threatening to kill their parents, with him fulfilling this promise by going to the dad's house and fucking killing killing the dad with a waffle maker. He then sticks his head into an ice cream cone and kills his mistress, with this image being so good I had to make it this video's thumbnail. In general, he has a weird obsession with decapitation, as he decapitates these two unnamed cops and uses their heads to terrorize the kids as he uses them like puppets, and that's pretty silly. I like that.
It's Grenadine for my ice cream treats.
So a lot of what makes movies memorable for me is the writing, specifically one-liners and catchphrases. Like, I could be on my deathbed and the only things that would be going through my head is brain rot and random ass one-liners. And this movie has a shit ton, with 90% of them coming from Clint Howard. Whether it's
Grenadine for my ice cream treats.
Or
you little turds are gonna have to learn you can't run from the ice cream man.
Or
that's what I call brain free.
Greg's one-liners just stick to me, and I genuinely don't know why. So, wrapping things up here, this is not a good movie. Like, not even close. But ever since I've watched it, I've always had a soft spot for it. I mean, I have a soft spot for funny bad movies in general, and in that crowd, this is probably one of the ones that stands out the most. Sure, it's not the peak of this weird as hell subgenre, but this has Grenadine for ice cream treats, and that's something almost no other movie has. So, by that metric, this is my favorite movie of all time now. Bye!